you ready?
Do you want to introduce it, or shall I?
I can introduce it. So this is a backlog, I guess, on the Evangelion rebuilds. We'll definitely probably reference the TV series and end of Evangelion anyway.
We have to, right?
Yeah. It's literally part of the same series, so.
Yeah, so, I guess that's what you're saying, is we might spoil some of the TV series in End of Evangelion, even in the non-spoiler sections, but I will try to avoid spoiling the rebuilds, probably past the first one, because the first one is, it is redoing some things from there's some changes, maybe there are less changes than I remember, but it's definitely the closest to the TV series, where the Rebuild 2 onwards start to change way more.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about the spoilers for those until the spoiler section. But, I guess, real quick, slight difference. Because you rewatched all of Eva and then went right into the rebuilds, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You just watched the rebuilds, right?
Yes, because I did rewatch Eva like a couple of years ago, I think in 2019. But I did not rewatch, but I didn't rewatch any of the rebuilds until this year, just within the last week, pretty much, for the sake of 3+1.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, do you want to talk about, or I guess we'll talk about the rebuilds generally. We shouldn't spend too long on them, I guess, but,
So, I guess my general thoughts on, every single one of them real quick is just that, one, I think is a little, the first rebuild is, a little bit boring. Not it didn't upset me or make me want to sleep or anything, but it was just I wasn't super into it because it's it is the one that's the closest to the TV series and not doing its own new interesting things yet, which is very much on purpose. I get why it's like that, especially when it's you don't want to change the beginning too much just yet. You just it is a straightforward thing.
Mm-hmm. And what I want to say about it is that because again, for me, I did find it more interesting, both because I haven't actually seen the material that it's covering in a while, right? So there was a freshness to me, but also there are parts that I just don't remember, and I don't know if there rebuild changes or if they were in the original show and I've just forgotten them, because I felt as the first movie to the rebuild, it is going over those older ideas again. But, the fact that... But, I feel I don't think Misato took Shinji down to look at Lilith in the first 5 episodes,
mm-hmm.
right?
They're definitely,
that's later.
Completely, spilling the beans on what's going on.
Right, which is, makes sense, because it's, here they're introducing the information earlier, but, one conversation I don't remember happening... I remember them bringing up Hedgehog's Dilemma in the TV series, but what I don't remember is Ritsuko specifically saying something when you grow up, you better learn how to judge the distance between people, right? So they're specifically tying the idea of overcoming Hedgehog Dilemma to growing up, which is a major thing throughout the rebuilds that I don't remember being there in the original.
I don't remember
maybe
that
I'm misremembering.
line either.
Right. So and I know I took notice of it, and so there's little line change. So it's not even just visual changes or stuff. I do think the way it's even the editing or the dialogue, it's both and the things they're focusing on in particular are there to kind of both redo parts of the original Eva in a newer package, but also build into the ideas that they're going to be doing later, and just doing it pretty well. I think there was one cut I remember that I don't think it couldn't have been done in the TV series, where Misato was talking to Shinji and she's saying people will thank you for what you did, because he piloted the Eva, he saved Tokyo 3. And even though it hurt him, and she's trying to pump him up and hey, you did a good job, and then immediately cuts to him getting hit by Toji, and that skips over so much information that if you just are watching the rebuilds as a remake of Evangelion, that doesn't work. But
I think it's really...
I liked it because I know, like, yeah, I've seen the series. You're supposed to have seen the series, so, like, you know, okay, yeah, he went into class, he found out, or he told everyone that he was a pilot, and, yeah, Toji's sister was hurt in the conflict. So, like, you know, you already know this information, so you just get that cut of from Misato saying, hey, people will thank you for this. And to Shinji not being thanked for it. In fact, the opposite of being thanked for it. And, like, it's a good edit. And, like, it, you know, helps for the conflict that the movie... Like, it works as a single movie in regards to, like, just having an arc of conflict and then also built... But also the first of 4 movies. So I appreciated it in that way. And maybe it's because, I haven't seen Eva in a while. So, a couple years. So, like, even just seeing like Anno being a sci-fi nerd and the politics and all the bullshit, and I'm just people will actually say, oh, Anno hates otaku. And I'm like, this motherfucker is the nerdiest dude I've ever seen, okay? So hold on, let me get some, or links. So, So here's one example of Anno being a big fucking nerd. You see those symbols? Where are they from?
Oh. Ultraman.
Well, specifically, an episode of Ultraman Ace in which the Ultras are crucified, and apparently that episode traumatized Anno as a child, and is probably a fair potential reason as to why Evangelion uses a lot of Christian imagery, because, like...
Yeah, I guess it can be, like, daunting and, like, in a scary kind of, like, you know, you could definitely frame it in that kind of way.
Right, like, there definitely seems to be some level of, like, fear of God, or, you know, because I would say ideologically, like, or at least, like, especially with, like, Shinji ultimately, like, at the end of Evangelion, he chooses, instead of getting to go to this LCL and, you know, be free of pain and suffering, kind of like the Christian afterlife, he instead chooses to live in suffering, which is Buddhism. Like, that's a big difference, is, you know, Buddhism, you go through the cycle of reincarnation and living in suffering, and it's part of, you know, about overcoming that or living with that and accepting that, versus Christianity, which is you eventually die and you leave it. So, like, even though it uses all this, even the fucking first, the first movie, with the first half of End of Evangelion and the first half is recap, is called Death and Rebirth, you know. Like, samsara, Buddhism. So it's just like, it's funny to me that even though it uses all this Christian imagery, like, there's parts of it that are just Buddhist, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess so. You know, it's made in Japan. It's a popular religion there, so it makes sense. But I'll link it to none. I can't grab it right now. In Evangelion 2.2, 2.0. Misato's ringtone is King Ghidorah noises, so it's like so Ultraman got Godzilla. It's there's some notable ones in 3+1 I don't want to spoil, but like he's just such a fucking nerd, and I just, you know, there's just so many just sci-fi things, and 3+1 introduces new ideas that weren't in the original Eva. It was just like, I don't know.
I feel like
there's
anyone
just so
who
much detail, and it's so
kind of makes these claims about Anno, like, you know, not liking otaku, or like not, like trying to imply that he thinks he's above them, just hasn't even begun to at least like kind of try to like actually read his interviews and just like, you know, just see snippets like out of context. It's like, I just don't think there's any way you can get that impression of him, especially with what he's like really trying to say and do with his series.
Yeah, like, maybe he's critical of them, but I feel like I've seen a quote, maybe it wasn't from him and I'm misremembering, but it's like, if you want to talk about otaku, like, you know, it just makes more sense to also be an otaku, because, like, if he's critical of them, he's a big fucking nerd, but he's also, like, made something out of that, like, right?
Yeah, like he's been in all of these situations that he's, like, trying to help other people out of. So he's not looking down on them. He's, if anything, he, like, has so much hope for them to where, like, he keeps stepping back to Eva to help these people that he genuinely believes that he can help through his series.
Right, like, because Anno, you know, he has people, you know, he has at least industry friends. I would hope he has, like, actual friends, but I at least know, like, has people he's worked with for a long time, or like in Blue Blazes, I saw the live action adaptation. Like he immediately started in college, just got a group of people that would become Gainax, and they just work together. He's married, which in Insufficient Direction is a manga by his wife Moyoko Anno, who sort of exploring their relationship. It's very funny, and Anno's just a giant nerd. Like he'll just do fucking suit actor poses randomly apparently, or he'll complain about the Kamen Rider belts not fitting him because they're made for 7-year-olds and he's a fucking fat middle-aged man. And it's funny. You should read it. It's a good read.
I didn't know his wife also made Weeb stuff. So
yeah, she's a mangaka, right? So it's but so he's not defined by being an otaku because he's also a creator, right? Even though he's a very nerdy apparently, someone commenting on his nerdiness in Shin Godzilla, it cuts between different cities or different prefectures doing different warning sirens, and they're each locally voiced by their individual local announcement voice people. Just stupid amounts of attention to detail for shit like that. One moment that stood out to me was in one of the scenes in Rebuild 1 was when Unit 0, the entry plug, or not the entry plug, the umbilical cable popped out, and before it hit the ground, air popped out of it, so it didn't crash at full weight, basically, to not do damage to the plug or the ground. I'm that's just such a nerdy detail that's there for no reason, and it's cool. I'll just say, and watching the rebuilds reminded me, because I do think the character drama and the characters are a big part of why Ava's important to people, but I just appreciate cool giant robots, because Ava does cool giant robot stuff really well, and just they have guns, and we see the shell casings that are so big they crush cars, and there's just so much bullshit, and it's fun. I like it. Or I think it was 2.0 that opened with there's an angel with spindly little legs that are walking on the water as it's freezing the water, and it just I like it. I'm sorry. But anyway, we're still talking about Ava Rebuild 1.
I think a big thing with the first two rebuilds, even though they're kind of someone could say that they're more basic, I guess, than the original TV series in terms of I don't think the character exploration is as good for some purposeful reasons. I still think they're there's entertaining parts, especially in 2 for me, where Anno's clearly, still trying to make a fun and entertaining and good movie, even in spite of purposely making certain things more basic and streamlined, and for some reasons, as we come to find out, spoiler wise, why things are the way they are. I still think they're really good movies. Well, I think 2's a really good movie. I don't think 1 as much.
I like 2. I don't know. I did feel a bit weird about it, but I didn't quite place it. I feel that would go away on rewatching the whole thing, because especially now that I better understand how 2 is in regards to all of the rebuilds. I think. But trying to think of what I specifically have to say about 2 without spoiling it.
About 2, I really hold on. Okay, yeah, that is 2. I was just make sure I wasn't trying to bring up some movie that a different rebuild. I really like the opening of 2. It's so fun to see Shinji and everyone at this new location that's never been in the show before, and just kind of having fun and stuff. It's a part of the TV series that I really liked, the parts where Shinji's happy and spending time with his friends, and enjoying
being
life
a normal
and stuff.
kid instead of a depressed yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. The location was super pretty, and I it's aquarium, and they're also definitely bringing up these ideas of they're kind of trying to instill this idea of there's this beauty to life, even around this even though the sea is red and stuff, and there's in 3.0 plus 1.0, even way later when there's more messed up things, they still have to take the time out to show the beauty of life and have these different messages of even though there's pain, there's still plenty of happiness to be found. and
Mm-hmm.
Kaiji's whole thing is that how you pronounce his name? I don't know.
Kaji is how I pronounce
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Look,
we were
I
just
typed it a
talking
million
about...
times in my notes, and I feel like 70% of the time I typed it with an extra I because I'm so used to Kaiji, the gambling series, that like my brain just defaults to that, even though his name is Kaji without the I in the middle. So don't worry about it.
Kaji. I think that it also ties into why he like plants things, and I think these movies like so much emphasize that aspect of Eva. Is really cool.
He did that in the original series.
Yeah, he did. He had
okay, it's been a while since
garden.
I've seen it. Just making sure. I thought so, but it's like okay, yeah.
And he even told that he told Misato to, he told Shinji. I think he told Shinji to tell Misato to take care of it if something happened to him.
Okay, gotcha. It's okay, just making sure because I feel like I thought so, but it's like, well, I also just watched that happened in Repo 2 where the garden came up. So okay, but yeah, 2 is good. I definitely, for me, let's see. Here's my thing: is that like I would say if I were to rank all the Ava stuff, I would put it like the rebuilds at like the bottom basically. Then like the TV series and End of Evangelion for me, and then the last rebuild. Because the last it's so fucking good. But I guess like because yeah, for me the TV series just does more to explore the characters. And End of Ava, even if like it's no longer like the end of Ava anymore. But like it's just got so much fucking iconic imagery and like in wait like not that the rebuilds don't look good, but like I just like Ava, End of Ava is just it's kind of something else in that regard, I think. And like Komsuzu Todd is just like it's End of Ava Evangelion is iconic. That's what I'll say.
Do
like
you think
it just
Susser Todd is a better song than Last Kiss?
I mean, I like Last Kiss, but how do you forget Komsuzu Todd? Like
look, it's so clear of Last Kiss for me. Like it's so unbelievably clear.
Like they're kind of on opposite ends of a mood spectrum,
yeah,
but like
I know.
Komsuzu Todd is such a interest. Like it nailed Jesus, like the whole sequence is.
It gets that feeling like of like like I feel like when I listen to that song, it just like it makes me feel so like I guess like it feels like one of those songs where it's like sorry for everything, sorry for all the mistakes that I've made and things like that. So like it really gets me in that kind of way.
Where like
whereas
Last Kiss
Kiss
really
doesn't
like
have that as like strong emotional reaction out of me.
Well, and
it's
it's also like a credits song. So in that case, like it's a really good song, but I feel like it doesn't have as bit like because when I think of Komsuzu Todd, I also think of the imagery that we see in the movie as it's playing. Where Last Kiss doesn't really I'll think about the movie, but it like not any and I guess especially the ending parts. But I guess yeah, it's the association isn't as strong. But also, like, I've seen 3.0 or 3+1 once, and I've seen End of Evangelion, like, 2 or 3 times now. So it's a little different, but...
I mean, I do think Last Kiss could grow on me more. Like, as a possibility. Like, I will definitely rewatch 3.0 plus 1.0 at some point. But as of right now, doesn't... It just... Like, Susser Todd is just so unbelievably good to me.
But yeah,
to get back to 2.0, did you have anything else to say about it?
I was ready to move on to 3 if you didn't have anything to say.
I mean, before spoiler things, I just think like the general spectacle of the movie is like super cool, like especially the ending imagery. I think even though again, like even though it's kind of more basic than the TV series in a lot of aspects, because this section of the show that 2.0 is covering is like not necessarily like peak Ava stuff. I think this like the really like strong visuals and like music and stuff is enough to really like I guess make up for that in a sense, just because it's not a part of Ava that I think back to quite as much.
Well, also you mentioned the soundtrack, and I've been kind of listening to that especially 2, 3, and 3+1, just because like I mean, it's not that the soundtrack for the first one is bad. It's just like it's just songs from the original Ava soundtrack, but like maybe some remixing here or there. Where 2 onwards has more music that are only in those movies. So it's a good soundtrack. I like it.
Oh, I guess one other thing I forgot to bring up, when you were talking about how, like, you know, you kind of have to have, like, it's fine, like, what the movies are doing is fine because you've seen the TV series, so, like, you know, you don't need to, like, you can fill in the blanks, right? I do think it's interesting that, like, from what I can tell, Anno has kind of, like, condoned the idea of someone just watching the rebuilds, and not the TV series in End of Eva.
Okay.
Not that he said it was like the best way to do it, but he is like fine with that, which I thought was interesting because like
it would be interesting to hear the perspective.
Yeah, like it paints a very different picture, so I'd be kind of interested like what somebody would think, but it's also like
because like I think we both or you were kind of talking about it, but and I feel like everyone I've talked about it's like. Especially 3+1 just like makes Ava on the whole like retroactively just like better by the way it like focuses on certain things and frames certain things, especially for like certain characters who I'll talk about later. But like, God, but we'll talk about 3+1. But I'm ready to move on to 3.
All right, yeah. We're still in the non-spoiler section, so...
Yeah, still non-spoilers, yeah. So, like, for me, this is where it really started to get, like, interesting. Like, not that I wasn't interested in 1 or 2, because, like, the setup was there, but 3 is very much doing more of its own thing, and it's weirdly divisive, even though, like, even just, like, rewatching it without having seen the end is, like, it's still, like, I felt like I could tell what was going on to a degree. Like, there's definitely stuff they're not explaining, but, like, I wasn't confused. Maybe people were just lost because they hadn't seen the other rebuilds or Ava in a while, and they're just watching 3, and they're like, I don't understand what's going on.
See, like
it's
I definitely good. Don't blame people if, like, they very much have this perspective of watching each movie one at a time as it comes out, because not only is it, like, you know, it's possibility it's been a while since you've seen the TV series and stuff, but it's also, like, there's such long gaps between some of these movies to where it's like I really couldn't imagine just having to sit with like 3 for like fucking ages. Like that just sounds kind of aggressively terrible.
No,
like,
3 came out in what, 2012, 2013, like 9 years ago. And 3+1 came out in March technically, but for English speakers it came out in August. So this year. So it's like goddamn. But yeah, what else was good? You know, obviously, you know, it's Shinji and Kaoru kind of giving them more time than they had in the TV series,
yes.
Really.
Like, this, like, I mean, like, you know, this might be cringe of me to say, but it's like, I think this is like the peak of Kaoru for me. Like, I, you know, even though I didn't care for him the first time I watched the TV series, I watched it again, and you know, I did, think he was good, but like, here, like, I really, like, this is where I really appreciate him, I think.
No, Kaoru is one of the characters that I'll mention who I think is in just the original Eva. They're, like, good, and especially for, like, the role they fill in the show, and they fulfill an important role. But the rebuilds just, like, enhance is him and those other characters that I'll mention in, like, just really good ways. And, like, God. But yeah, like, this is definitely, like, the low... I think, you know, it's also just, like, the low point of the rebuilds, and that's kind of where it ends,
yeah,
right?
Like Shinji's,
so
like, Shinji's personal low point is, like, you know...
You know, so maybe that just didn't gel with people, but I think, like, it looks good. There's more cool robot shit, like, look, I'm just gonna... Misato fights, some enemies with a plane, and it is awesome! Like, just it's cool. And you know, yeah, it's good. And 3+1 is just it's the best Ava thing. Like,
I think like I think that what I liked, like 2.0 onwards, I liked I think the visuals really came a long way. 1.0 just doesn't like look like super interesting, I guess, but like 2.0 3.0 and like onwards and stuff like looks really good, and I definitely think that you like, even though I guess it's deviating more from the TV series style, like I still think it looks really good.
The only visual thing that was a little like to me was some of the CG sometimes.
Yeah,
like even
I mean, that's definitely fair.
But I'm not the kind of person who like apes on it really. But just like that doesn't look like that. Or I just noticed it was CG instead of just like right, like not it's not the worst thing, but it's definitely like I noticed it. But
I also in 3.0 I really liked the piano scene when like Shinji's playing the piano with Kaoru.
Oh yes.
Like I don't know. Like this is really the movie where it's like I really like their bond, and like I feel like it's even more well done here, showing how Kaoru is helping Shinji out during his low point and kind of giving him this little bit of joy in such a tough situation to kind of still actually kind of try to do things, even though like at the end of 3.0 things still go wrong, obviously. It's not the end of the movie series yet, so it's obviously gonna be more things that happen, but I thought it was good.
No, yeah, like 3 aside from the last one, like 3 is my favorite of the first 3 rebuilds personally.
2's my personal favorite, but like
okay.
I definitely respect the 3 pick, and it's definitely the Chadlier pick because like people are kind of like they dislike it so much. I don't understand. I mean, like I guess one way I kind of understand, like a little misconception, I guess maybe, but that's a spoiler, so I can't really talk about it.
Well, and like just for it was also I think my most improved Eva rating because I gave it a 6 before when I watched it 9 years ago. And it went up to an 8, so I liked it way more, I would say. But but yeah, and I don't have much more to say about 3, and I really don't have much to say about 3+1 without spoiling it, just because it's like it just makes Ava better. like
I guess in the non-spoiler way, I really again it's like super prettiest one. It's the newest one, so it makes sense why. Again, I really like some of the time taken away to kind of have this more relaxing kind of, seeing life and, seeing how certain people are living after a certain thing happens.
The first third of the movie is really good. Like the second third of the movie is also good. It's just probably like if I was going to divide it, like, I guess like it was maybe, but it's also like it's just different where it's like the final part of the movie was just like
unbelievably clear.
Fuck. Like, look, let me say this right now. 3+1 is maybe is like up there in like top 3 media of my like, or maybe even top like it's one of my favorite media experiences this year. And the only reason it's not a 10 is because I think I just have to rewatch all of Ava and see how I feel after that.
Oh my goodness, possible 10.
See. I was sobbing through the credits the whole time. Like, it made me cry within just like the first like 40 minutes or so. I was
See, I also think that if I like, even though I just rewatched the TV series and watched the rebuilds and stuff, I still think with the context of 3.0 plus 1.0, if I rewatched all of Ava, I feel like I would like it even more.
No, yeah, and like, because that's the thing is, I guess like Ava's contentious, but I think a big part of that is like one, the time period where it like first came out and was popular, right, in the 90s and like early 2000s or such, where the discourse, we just didn't have the information, so Ava, it's so revolutionary, like, yeah, it's popular, but Anno is just referencing like Shinji's character isn't like some mold breaking thing. Watch Return of Ultraman and Gundam 79.
Yeah, like again, like as as Crafts said, Anno's a nerd, so it's like like Ava, like the pieces of Ava people like are like little pieces taken from other things. So if like if somebody liked a specific aspect of Ava and like could trace that back to X thing, they probably also enjoy X thing as well.
Yeah, and even if I think like Evangelion very much stands on its own, it's really like Eva's really interesting to talk about, right? Like, and but it's like so one that like, and I also think people just kind of like maybe miss the point. And which is normal. Like, I have never actually heard someone bring up Buddhism in the context of Ava because people are always talking about the Christianity, and I'm just like,
that was new to me that you brought it up.
like, and then watching it, but I'm just like, oh, this is Buddhist as fuck. Like, at least in some core ways, especially when you contrast it to like certain things about Christianity, and even though it's using a lot of Christian imagery, but like, it's not Bleach, like, it's not literally like Buddhism versus Christianity, but it's using elements of both in different ways, and I'm just like, oh yeah. So but like, even with like Buddhism is in a lot of anime and manga, but no one ever talks about it except me apparently, and like a couple other guys. But it's like just the discourse isn't like people aren't. I don't know. If people could do better at understanding things in general, and Eva is a really popular series that like, it's weird, even though like, because I feel like it like explains itself a lot.
Yeah,
the
last two episodes of the TV anime are character analysis of everyone.
It's Anno made a video essay about Evangelion,
and he also made a documentary about the rebuilds as well.
I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't seen it either, but okay, apparently he does talk about the point.
Right, but even just in the rebuild, specifically, I would say Kaji and Kaoru are literally just saying the point to your face. Like, just listen to what they say and apply it to the rest of the fucking Eva, and you will get the point. I don't think it's hard to understand. I just think maybe people are just weird. Eva specifically is like, oh, it's got cool imagery, I must not get it, or something like that, or something. I don't know. I think they're looking down on themselves too much. I don't think it's hard to get.
But like, I don't remember why, if I clicked on it on purpose or if I genuinely like accidentally clicked on it. But there's like this Giga video on Eva. It's not the newest one he put out. I haven't seen that one. But it's one of them where he opens the video by saying, well, it's not the very opening, but it's in the opening of the video where he's saying, we still don't understand what Anno was trying to tell us.
What? Maybe speak for yourself, dude. Like, it's fucking. If I had the energy, I would like make an Eva video, but I wouldn't script it. I would literally just like assemble like lines from the series and have the show explain itself to you, because it fucking does on its own already. And that's not to say there aren't interesting connections to draw. Like, I remember seeing a thread that because picking up on details I did notice, where how like in the TV series, Asuka wears this yellow shirt that Misato also wears a lot, because she wants to like grow up and be recognized by Kaji, so she wears Misato's shirt when she isn't around. Or how Ritsuko doesn't have makeup when Gendo's out of town, because she likes him. And you know what? I'm pretty sure in Rebuild 3 and onward, she's not wearing makeup either. Because of her relationship with Gendo and how it's different. Like, I didn't ever notice those details until they were pointed out to me. So it's like, it's not like there's nothing to dig into with Eva, but I feel like as far as the core ideas, it's there. It's right there. Just open your eyes. And you read it.
Anno was trying to tell us. It was so funny.
Sorry, and I don't want to be elitist. I want to explain it to people, but it's like, I feel like, come on, you can do, like, people, like, especially when it is touted, it's like, it's so deep. Bleach is like 5 times deeper than Eva. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it right there, and I'm not even exact. This is not a joke. This is fighting words. I can say more about Bleach than I ever could about Eva. Monica, I think, is denser than Eva. It's like half the length, and I think it's more like at least compared to the TV series, especially like because I wasn't thinking about it since watching the movie, but like Monica's really fucking dense and interesting, and it's like it's so good. Like, I don't know, Ava's just, for me it's just like, and I like Ava, but for me it's just not like the most interesting thing I could be watching or talking about. So
sad.
I mean, and that's not to say it's not. It's just like, it's just I'm just again specifically talking about it in the context of how it's discussed as this like really deep anime, and I just don't see it. Even it's like, it's really good and it is interesting to talk about, but I don't know. I feel like we should move on to spoilers.
I mean, I guess non-spoiler, like real quick, like what's like super good about 3.0 plus 1.0 is I definitely think that it super goes out of its way to paint Shinji as someone who's finally become an adult and like actually tackles his problems in a grown-up kind of way. And like, I would definitely argue that even by the end of Eva, he's not that way. Like, you know, even after he returns to Earth, as it's, you know, assumedly being put back together and people are like returning and stuff, you know, still kind of immediately goes back to being
afraid of reality and lashing out against it out of fear, right? From pain, almost, right? Which, of course, like, and we know he doesn't want that because, like, the first thing that happens is Asuka, like, gives him what he wants, and he stops choking her, and, you know, he's still disgusting, right? Like, it ends off, on a kind of a sour note, even if the ultimate, like, you know, his message is good. And they even kind of, I feel like, comment on that a bit in 3+1, so, but that's a spoiler, I feel. But I guess that's, moving into spoilers. See, it's like, I just want to talk about 3+1, but I can't. I feel like we should, like, do we go through the others first, or...
I don't feel like we need to go through one as much, unless you have something you want to bring out.
I mean, I kind of already said earlier where I feel like, there's, like, little changes or additions here or there that kind of are building up into what the rebuilds are doing. But yeah, specifically, it is just kind of, like, going over a lot of the basic, like, you know, or the, not basic, but general conflicts from, you know, Eva, and, you know, as a refresher on what it's doing in a way that sort of builds into the rest of the rebuilds. Well, I guess one thing I want to notice is, like, the titles, the subtitles are, like, you know, you are not alone, because Shinji is not alone. He, you know, Rei's, you know, everyone's has their own struggles and stuff. You cannot advance, because even though, like, they are making these small changes, ultimately they just kind of fall back, and everything gets fucked. Because, you cannot undo. Shinji can't undo. Like, the titles work, and I didn't realize, for some reason I didn't realize it until this rewatch, and I'm like, oh! So I felt like I should mention them.
Like, real quick, I feel like, you know, people kind of complain about 3.0, supposedly, like, undercutting 2.0, and, like, they felt like it was, like, a really... Like,
I think 2.0 undercut 2.0.
Yeah, like, at the end of the movie, they literally say that the third impact is like beginning or whatever. Like,
no, like,
you know,
like, we don't see it, but it's very much clear that Shinji fucked up. Like, because people, Shinji became a Chad. He saved Rei by, you know, oh look, the Walkman, or the cassette player that, you know, represents his escapism. He saved her, and he got it back. Like. Yeah, this is good.
Gendo also, you know, also says this is what they wanted to happen. So it's like, it's clearly not supposed to be a real victory, even in the context of 2.0. And like, as you brought up with the title, it's in the title. Like,
they can't look. That's what, like, because I mean, I remember seeing people, like, I think Demolition D in particular complained about it, where it's like, you know. Like, Asuka's, like, she's becoming more, like, Asuka and Rei are becoming more dead towards Shinji, so it's kind of like, you know, it's not doing what the TV series is doing, and in a way that he didn't like, but I think it works for the movie, because especially when you consider, like, why does this happen? Because Shinji's, like, cooking for them, and, like, he's doing something nice for them, and that he never, like, I don't remember him doing anything like that in the TV series, and as a result, they're, like, they do kind of change a bit. Like, Rei doesn't get slapped in the elevator. She holds Asuka away, and Asuka never. I never got the vibe that she ever really liked Shinji in the TV series. Like, if anything, she liked Kaji, and she felt emotionally abusive towards Shinji. Like, kiss me. Ew, that was gross. I gotta go wash out my mouth. Like,
I do think
maybe there's some scenes I'm forgetting, but that's just
kind of there in the TV series. Like, not that she recognized it herself or anything, or it was like,
okay,
she felt like super strongly. But it's like, I think there's very clear moments where, like, she's, like, egging on Shinji and, like, kind of, like, wanting him to stand up for himself and, like, you know, not just take this, like, shit that she's giving him. So it's, like, kind of clear that, like, you know, she has, like, a little more for him than she, like, appears, which, you know, I don't think you have to interpret it as her liking him, but it's like, since the movie played up her liking him so much, I think it was probably an aspect there that, like, an aspect that was there. But,
well, one scene that happened in both, I'm pretty sure, was when Shinji was in bed and she, like, joins him, basically, and, you know, don't turn around. Like, yeah, because that happened in both. But, like, so, like, on some levels, even she's lonely, and she goes to Shinji to, like, do something about that, but she's still Asuka about it, I guess, right? But that does happen in both, right? So, you know, that makes sense.
She probably would have liked him more if he like, you know, like, basically chatted up and, like, you know, didn't take it, but, you know, since he was the way he was, you know, she couldn't really She couldn't really do
right,
anything with that,
like,
I guess.
Yeah, she wanted maturity and she's very like Chunibyo, where she's trying to be an adult. Like again, with wearing Masada's shirt, and Shinji's a kid. She hates that childishness, but like also she is childish in herself because she wants to be an adult. But anyway, to finish my thought is like again going back to You Cannot Advance, because like she does, kind of like him, and she has the whole speech when going into pilot 3, Eva 3, where it's like she's talking about she's character analyzing herself, and basically, and like she's noticing that she's changing and stuff, but at the end she cannot advance. She goes back to piloting Eva, and everything goes to shit, right? Like it's. At the end of the day, Rei sacrifices herself because even though she is changing and growing, she still sees herself as expendable, and then she gets trapped in the angel, and Shinji has to save her, and they just at the end of the day they need Eva because they cannot advance, and it works for what the movie's doing, and that's why how does 3.0 take away from 2 when 2 takes away from 2 if you think it's about them advancing or something like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like at the very least, like even if you're gonna decide like, oh, I don't like that they didn't just let Shinji have this victory, like how could he have been wrong? Like even if you're gonna decide to still dislike it, at least recognize that it's not like this wasn't a planned thing that they clearly already had in mind and clearly wanted to go toward. Like it's not like 3.0 was being out of nowhere or trying to slap you in the face unexpectedly, thinking that things were fine, because they clearly weren't.
Look, just go back and rewatch the very end, just the what Misato and Ritsuko are talking about after Shinji kills the angel and all the fucking crazy shit is happening, because they literally just describe how 3.0 starts with like, oh look, near third impact happened. Fuck you, Shinji, for destroying the world. It's all there in 2.0.
I feel like I've even seen reactions of people even now, of people rewatching it and still having that take. I can't remember who it was. It was like a couple days ago, I think. But I don't know. It's a really weird viewpoint to have. What did you think about even aside from Shinji having made the wrong decision in 2.0 and kind of, not, it's not a positive thing. What do you think about the scene itself? Even aside from it being a mistake, because I thought it was super cool and super, it's still cool mecha kind of things where it's in the context of another show, this would be fucking badass and oh my god.
Yeah, Ultraman Nexus, another show that the scene of Shinji reaching in to grab Rei when she's if you haven't, I used some visuals of it in my Toku video, and there's a image floating around of the, so yeah, you mentioned the context of the show, and yeah, speaking of Anno being an ultra nerd, so in 2004 a little show called Ultraman Nexus aired, which ended in 2005, and yeah, he it's a pretty heavy reference between the two. But it's still it's cool. Even his skin falling off, as he's hurting himself to reach for her is, but it's cool robot stuff is nice. And so maybe because people think it is cool robot stuff, that confuses them when it comes to the point of what the story, because at the end of the day, Shinji is being more like Gendo. Gendo couldn't get over Yui's death, and Shinji refused to accept Rei possibly dying.
Yeah,
and,
he was saying oh, I don't care what happens to the world or myself, which is
right, he's not,
it could be in the context of something else, a different series, sure, that could be the correct and decision to no matter what try to save
in
and
fact,
reach out to
to
this
use
person,
a series that visually references this scene, when towards the end of SSSS Gridman, when Auntie pulls Akane out of the kaiju in a way that visually references Rebuild, that's more of a positive thing. But so I kind of understand why people might even want to see it as a positive thing, because here's Shinji finally manning up and going to save the girl, right? he's not being a coward anymore. He's
it's still,
get in the robot, Shinji. Like,
it's still bad that he's throwing away everything around him to do this, you know?
Well, maybe by the end of 3.1 or 3+1, you should the Evas are gone. That's the whole ending. Shinji's like, no more Eva. But even before that, what do they describe being in the Evangelion like? Oh, it's like a womb. Their mother's souls are literally inside. And it's a story about growing up. So you'd think they'd need to not go back to the comforting place of their mother. They need to, go outside. Hello?
What I think is interesting about that is, I feel like you could look at End of Evangelion retroactively in a kind of way where, Shinji's still being kind of, stagnant. With his decision, he just returns, everything back to normal and back to the status quo instead of, searching further for what he wants. I feel like he's definitely just kind of, I definitely think there is room for the rebuilds to change things that people didn't really consider, I guess. Especially when Shinji doesn't like the Evas and really want them around,
and it's consistent in 3+1 where okay, what happens to Asuka? She completely gives herself into Eva. Doesn't work out. In fact, it works exactly as Gendo planned. Shinji fights Gendo in Eva. It doesn't work out. Gendo even says, this can't be resolved through a battle. It has to be resolved through words, right? Eva just isn't the answer. And it's
so good.
It's so, come on. It's, I can kind of get people not picking up on it from just, the first two rebuilds, right? Even though, but after watching 3+1, how do you, it's right there. Come on.
What did you think about the whole talk that Karu had? Actually, no, I think you referenced this before, where he was the people of the world still see it as your fault and don't see that you're trying to save someone. I think you referenced that before.
Maybe, but correctly. I feel like I don't know. See what you bring it up. It just I think it's interesting how the start of 3 is handled versus the start of 3+1, where Shinji's kind of in a shitty place in both of them, and even how 3+1 sort of contrasts with, because I feel Shinji at the start of End of Evangelion and Shinji at the start of 3+1 is both Shinji's at his lowest point because of Kaoru, right? But the way they're handled is so different, and we need to talk about 3 though, because before we get to 3+1, where do we start with 3?
I mean, we can talk about how we haven't talked about how there's a whole thing with Rei and different Reis and Shinji wanting to see his Rei and Rei being a different
I kind of felt bad. I think she's called Rei Q officially because the movie also has the subtitle of Q. But I think she's called the 6th in race in 3+1. I felt bad for her because she's not doing anything wrong. She's just another Rei, and Rei, but you're not my Rei, who I sacrificed everything to save. And she's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Stop bullying her. She didn't do anything wrong. Come on, Shinji's just being he's just baby malding, and Rei's Rei didn't do anything, stop messing with her. And I don't know,
yeah.
I did really like how she was handled in 3+1, even though it's also the worst movie ever, because fuck, but we'll talk about that. But
I do think, it is interesting for him to, interact with, another Rei for an extended period of time, because I don't think that happens in the TV series.
She did die, and another one happened in the original TV series.
Yeah, but, I don't think they really interacted, and, the only time when he saw the other Rei was, in End of Eva, when she, went over to him, as he was, being taken by Seele and like starting human instrumentality and stuff, but it wasn't like, you know, him having to like kind of live on Earth around her in a sense. I don't think it was like that. So I just thought it was interesting to see that in 3.0, and I kind of like seeing this new Rey being different from the other Rey before in like a little bit, especially in 3.0 plus 1.0. See, it's a little hard to talk about 3.0 in some aspects because it's like it is very much the beginning of a new part and like just the beginning of 3.0 plus 1.0 in a way.
God, even the way, like, because yeah, it's titled 3 plus 1 because it's like advancing on 3, but like the way it ties to some of the shit in that movie, like, anyway, but talk about Kaoru for a bit, I guess, because like yeah, the piano scene was really good because it's like, you know, Shinji's just like, he doesn't know what he's doing, but Kaoru's still able to harmonize with them, and gay piano boys, and it's wholesome. Like, you know, it is this nice breath of fresh air after, you know, Shinji getting shit on for like 25 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, he literally doesn't know what's going on. And like, you know, everyone's saying, don't pilot the Eva, and you fucked everything up, even though he doesn't know how he fucked up. And like, you know, he just feels like shit because he doesn't know what's going on. And Masato, and even Kaoru, Masato's like, treating him badly, so it's just like, damn.
Yeah. And you even have Kaoru like kind of explaining the point, like, you know, he talks about how, like, embracing change, or I think he even comments on like how, you know, mass extinctions and, or, you know, just in general, like death are important for evolution, but kind of what, you know, Nerve and or Seele were, I forget how to pronounce it, were doing. Where like they're doing these
I feel like in the show they say Seele, but I mean I could be mistaken.
Seele, yeah, it's just I don't, for some reason I feel like they said Nerve more, so I just forgot for some reason. But yeah,
Seele and Nerve are different.
I know. But like, well, Seele stops being a thing is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but like, because yeah, you know, he's talking about like the artificial extinction, or they're you know, sort of diverging from that natural path, or one thing he said is like how it's important to, like, you know, keep trying something until you get better at it, which just really fits just like well, especially going between 3 and 3 plus 1 is you have like Shinji's failures sort of being like covered up by other, or, you know, like Kaoru takes the necklace, the collar, that was it, that like he's protecting Shinji from himself almost, so that Shinji couldn't have the room to advance, right, by you know, because like I think, you know, this also comes in Madoka, which is probably why I didn't think about it, but just the idea of like you know, children being a burden on their parents because the parents can take their burden so that the children can like grow from their failure, which in Madoka was an issue because Madoka hadn't, you know, she was a good kid who never failed. She never, you know, failed. But, you know, so in Shinji's case, like he needs to grow up, and so yeah, here like he's making this mistake by taking the spears, but Kaoru takes the burden of his failure, and then you have Misato doing that in 3 plus 1, right, so that he can, all right, maybe, yeah, so he can, you know, grow up but you know, having this room to fail almost, but he doesn't take it that well, at least for Kaoru.
Yeah. And I just thought it was like, you know, like the last part of the movie was just like super driving home how, like, you know, Shinji is still kind of blindly doing certain things just because he wants this like easier solution, and this like, you know, he just wants to solve everything and make everything go back to how it was. So he's like, you know, even though it literally everyone's telling him, don't grab these spears. Even the person who was like initially on board with him doing it, like Kaoru, is saying,
Kaoru's like, hey Shinji, I don't think this is the best idea. And I was
like,
like, don't fucking do it, asshole. And she's just like, I'm gonna grab him though. And like, yeah. Like, I can understand people being frustrated with that, but it's like, he's gotta fail to learn, like, I mean, so like it makes too much sense, and like he still like wants to pilot Eva for his dad's like recognition because, you know, Misato chased him away. He doesn't have anything else left. Even though like Sakura fucking like don't pilot Eva, and then what, like when she has her moment in 3 plus 1, And I'm like, you had one fucking job, Shinji. And she's like, Matt, you're like, you did the one thing I asked you not to do. And it's like, Shinji, you dumbass. But,
what did you think about Asuka? Like, throughout from between 1.0 to 3.0?
See, I definitely think I prefer the original, but, like, she's also really different in some ways. Like, one thing that struck me was she's got, like, the little puppet that she talks to, right?
Yeah, that was kind of odd.
Well, because, yeah, especially because in the first Eva, in the TV series, rather, she has one thing that stuck out to me is, like, she hates dolls, and which ties to her pack story with her mother, and also how she interacts with Rei, who she calls a doll, and she is, like, you know, Gendo's puppet, so to speak. But in the fucking rebuilds, Asuka is also like Rei, where she's like, what? And so she is a doll herself. So it, like, it's kind of my mind. Like, what?
Yeah, so
like that was
kind of makes sense why she like actually, you know, she doesn't hate dolls like this Asuka doesn't.
Yeah, so you had to, you know, you asked me what I thought of her from the first three, but it's really like the last one that contextualizes how she is and what's like why she's so different almost in some ways, because like she still has a lot of her like temperament especially, but she's also like I would say she's like of the main like three, she's probably the most different from her original TV series character, I think. But
yeah,
like
I
she's still
think
good.
even before like stuff went down, she was like generally like kind of nicer. You know, even though like, you know, it is part of her personality to you know, have a temperament, but she was like overall didn't like blow up as much and stuff.
Right, and like I said, I felt like TV Asuka was downright emotionally abusive at times, where, you know, Rebuild Asuka was very mean, but I feel like, you know, at least, you know, I don't think she crossed some lines that she did in the originals, so, like you said, nicer. And we've been avoiding Mari, but I want to wait to talk about her, because, like, her role in, like, 2 and 3 is pretty small, but even, like, the few bits she gets are, like, once you have the 3+1 context, it's like, but,
Trying to think about 3.0 a little bit, if I have anything else to say.
Oh, there was one line I noticed where I think it was from Shinji talking to Fuyutsuki, where it's like, breaking the world is easy, rebuilding it not so much, and I'm like, title drop. So I don't know, it stuck out to me.
Do you think that like the fact that, you know, Rebuild is clearly a sequel to Ava was like clear from the start, or do you think it's like
I mean, I don't think it clicked with me for a while, but like thinking about it, it's like once you see the stinger at the end of 1 with Kaoru like talking about the repeats, and there's the blood stain on the moon from Rei at the end of Evangelion, like I feel like that kind of, you know, makes it like, oh, of course. But
I think for me,
yeah,
at least,
I don't know
like
when that
by
clicked
the
for
time
me.
2.0 is like, yeah, you know, this is a sequel. Like I definitely don't think 1.0 is like as like, you know, like definite like you know, like when I was watching it, I already knew that people theorized that Rebuilds were a sequel to Ava, so I did have that in mind when I was watching it, but like I also didn't want to assume that people were correct, because I never heard the exact reasoning people think that. So, you know, I tried to like keep both sides in mind, where it's like, you know, like thinking about it as like just kind of a remake of the series, or, you know, like I was looking for how it could be either or before I
Yeah, you were deliberately leaving yourself open, right? No, I understand. I think that's good. A good mindset to have, right? Even if like, you know, now you understand, but like you're keeping yourself open to multiple interpretations for your that's good, I think. So, but anyway, I'm ready to talk about 3+1.
Yeah.
Oh, what? What? How the fuck? Hold on, I have the image. I need to post the image. As expected. Just what you expect from the master, Mr. Anno. Like,
look, I feel like
fuck.
3.0 plus 1.0 just like completely just it you know, like before I watched the rebuilds, I basically said can't wait for the rebuilds to be secretly built different, or secretly unbelievably built different or something like that. And 3.0 plus 1.0 just completely makes that.
It's not even
accurate.
a secret. It's not even a secret. It just, like, look, I think, like, just to be broad, like, the thing that sticks out to me most is, like, yeah, Gendo, Kaji, Rei, Kaoru, characters who I think were good and filled their roles in the original series, are just better characters now. Like,
Gendo, 10 million %.
Holy like, I mean, I remember I'd heard the interpretation, like, oh, he's a lot like Shinji, and when I rewatched it, I was like, oh yeah, no, I can kind of see it. But seeing it?
Oh my god.
What the fuck?
It started making me cry when they, like,
okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Showed his backstory, and was like, yes, I also used the record player, and
or the cassette player, yeah, and
the cassette player, and
God, no, we gotta we can't jump ahead. I know we want to it's so good, but like even the way just the movie like starts is like Kaoru's fucking dead, Shinji is distraught, so like we see Village 3 and we see they've all grown up, they've become adults, all his friends, and but then what really fucking, like, Rei Q specifically is being adorable, and I'm like messaging what, and I'm like, is this movie going to make me like Rei? Because like I've never disliked her, but it's like if I were gonna like compare it to like Shinji and Asuka and Misato, like they're clear, right? Like, you know, and Rei's purposely kind of like, you know, nothing, right? Like that's the point. But in 3+1, it does the thing I really like, where it uses that to sort of like reassess, you know, like she's like, what's a hand? Like, why do people hold hands? What is goodbye? What is good morning? Like, cat. like
yeah, like that Rei's probably like even more of a blank slate. So like it makes sense why she's like so easily like, I guess, influenced and kind of changed. Because, like, you know, the other Rei in the TV series spent some time around Gendo and stuff, and around the, like...
Right, so she was already kind of, like...
Nerve and doing these things, but, like, this
Rei...
Rei...
Right, so she's being influenced by a bad person, and this Rei is being influenced by, like, a wholesome community with a bunch of, like, old ladies who think she's adorable, and Hikari, who's good mom, and, like... So, yeah, she's, like, because she... She's so good. Like... Oh my god. And then they fucking kill her. And then they fucking kill her off. And the movie becomes a 0 out of 10. Fuck you, Anno, you're a piece of shit. Fuck! You can't do that.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting that, because, like, you know, I heard, like, a little bit about the movie before it came out. Like, White said, like, I guess we were in, like, I think we were in, like, DC or something, or, like, somewhere. He said, do you want to hear about, like, potential 3.0 plus 1.0 spoilers? And it did, like, contain the fact that she was, like, in, like, at their, like, farm or whatever. Mm-hmm. But right, but the spoiler wasn't, like, entirely accurate to where it sounded like Rei ends off the story just living on a farm and stuff, instead of, like, she's just working there for a bit and kind of, like, like, it makes it sound like she's alive.
I understand that. Which I wonder was a little bit to like give you like a false hope, because well, like, especially the way that like she spit like her last note to Hikari, where she basically goes like all the things she was taught in like a way that doesn't make sense except in the way that she was taught them, and it hurts. It fucking hurts, because like it's like, what is it? It's like good morning, good night, hello, goodbye, and it's like. Not in that order, I think, but it's like... it's even before that, the way when she's, like, reaching out to Shinji and she holds out her hand because she wants to hold hands with him because of, like, what her definition for that is like... Mm-hmm. God, it was so good! Like, and, the part that really made me cry was, like, Shinji, where he's in the same state he was at the start of end of Evangelion. Like I especially remember, like, Misato trying to drag him along, but, you know, there's a whole crisis situation, so nobody has the time to actually deal with him. But in 3+1, like, even though, yeah, Shinji's a fuck-up. He's depressed, he's useless, and he's just sitting there. But his friends are there for him. And they help him by just giving him his space and just being there for him when they need him, when he ah it's so good.
Yeah, like,
and this is just how the movie starts.
I really love 3.0 plus 1.0 in like in the way that like I feel like it's so like it's so much more of a like hopeful movie, I would say, than End of Eva overall to me. Like, you know, I do get the point that like before Shinji makes his decision not to have AT fields and like, you know, be willing to be with everyone, he's like, you know, he's saying that in End of Eva, he's like saying that like, you know, he believes all of their bonds were real and like all their connections were real and legitimate, and like, you know, he can't just like run away from that and kind of just be in this new world. So like that's part of why he goes back. But like again, like what really leaves a sour taste in my mouth, like for me personally, is that ending where he's like at the beach and, you know, choking Asuka, and she just says disgusting, and the movie ends. But like,
well, and they even kind of bring, like I was kind of getting at earlier, is in this movie they go into like through the gate, and there's like the imaginary world, and like they even, I think there was even a line I felt like was kind of calling attention to that, where like Shinji was able to change in the imaginary world, but he couldn't change in the real world in the context of End of Eva. I need to check and see what line that was, but I feel like there was something that kind of made me think about that, basically. But the ending was a lot, so it's like, excuse me for not like specifically remembering the part that I felt implied that. But like I'm looking at my notes again, and there's just like more moments of Rei being cute. Was like when the ladies were like dressing her up, and she like, oh, is this blushing? Oh, is this embarrassment? And I'm just like, or when she sees the baby for the first time, and why did you make this human small? And it's just so funny. Oh God, they made Rei good. I can't believe it.
Like, I super think it's like
was good parent figures.
Great and valuable to like kind of have like 3.0 very much like focus on like, you know, the fallout of the like the negative side of what happened with the third impact and like all these like negative things. But then, you know, 3.0 plus 1.0 takes the time to start with like, you know, all these hopeful things and like, you know, the other side. Whereas like, you know, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm like dissing End of Eva. Like I do like
I feel like they're kind of like they're two halves of the same coin, right? Like, especially now that we have the full franchise, because yeah, it's called End of Eva, and at the time it was the ending. But like now if like I feel like looking at the whole thing just structurally, it kind of works as like an end and a low point for like the whole franchise, right? With the rebuilds like being like the third act of the franchise in a sense, which is weird to think of, but it's like it kind of works. But you know, so yeah, like even when we were talking about the music, like Last Kiss versus Komsusu Todd is like they're two different moods, and like so I think like End of Eva and look, the fact. Like, even just, or no, I guess this was more, now there's a sequence in End of Eva too, but like, you have the episode 25 and 26, and in 3+1, Anno does that, but as a fight scene instead, and it's fucking awesome! With the kind of going through different parts of Eva, but it's, this movie is fucking insane.
I really like seeing, I think it's in the later half, Misato with Shinji, and kind of like, you know, like she, you know, in 3.0 she was like kind of harsh on him and stuff, but you know, in 3.0 plus 1.0, you know, they do have another moment where she can kind of decide to believe in him, and like she kind of
finally steps up as his caretaker in a way that, you know, she almost never did in the TV series, or even when she tried, like, when it really counted, she wasn't able to, because she had her own problems, her own pains that she was kind of handling. But, like, in this movie, yeah, she's able to change and help Shinji, and it's... I guess related to Masato is how, like, Kaji works as being, like, the most important character in the rebuilds almost, even though he has like 15 minutes of screen time and then dies.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it's kind of interesting how they like changed his role. I haven't had the chance to like super think on like everything he's doing, but yeah, it is. Well, like, it is especially like thinking
about, I mean, part of this I saw a Twitter thread about like Kaji just being associated with like the idea of life and stuff, and you know, with like or more specifically life and death. Like, I think I remember in 2, is he was talking to Shinji in the aquarium, which is more like it's a plant for like harboring like sea life, that because in the world in the rebuilds the sea is red and there's no sea life in it that's alive basically, but here I think like so they're seeing fish and whales and stuff for the first time at the
fresh
aquarium,
water,
right?
and all the sea life,
Right, and like Shinji, there was one part where Shinji commented on the smell, and Kaji just noticed like that's like because he's smelling the rot and the death of like the dead fish and stuff, but like that's that's a part of life, and right, like this like death and rebirth, or people carrying things on, right, and like which we see in the village 3 of here's people like they're carrying on and they're they all grew up and like just like. Like between and like they're even Kaji's even talking with Kaoru at the end of the movie, and I felt like they're the two kind of like mentor figures in regards to like spelling out the points of the rebuilds, because Kaoru was also doing, especially in 3, was also doing it. But like that's part of why I think the movie just like or the rebuilds just make them like better, and especially the way it frames Kaoru in like how he mostly wanted to help Shinji because he saw himself in Shinji, and he wanted like Shinji to have happiness because he wanted to have happiness. And I never got that from the original TV series
as a way to help himself in a lot of ways.
Right, which was kind of like a flawed way to do it, because he's not actually like helping himself or loving himself, right? He's like doing it vicariously through someone else, and
it is interesting that like Kaoru just tries to love Shinji, and but it doesn't like fill this hole, I guess, in his heart, and Shinji tries to just accept his love and stuff, but it doesn't fill the hole in his heart either. And it's kind of it is interesting. It's like like some could say that they would make a good couple and stuff, but I think they obviously both have like flawed like a flawed relationship in some ways, to where like it makes sense why they couldn't be with each other.
Yeah, and even though like I'm fine with shipping, but like at least that's not the relationship that the series ultimately went with, and like especially when you like we'll talk about Mari, I'm sure, but like I just think it works. But before we get to that, I'm just trying to think of like what else, because especially like another like I guess more part of a callback thing was Ritsuko shooting Gendo in the fucking face, was like, because like they're doing like the thing from End of Eva, but like kind of in reverse, because in End of Eva he killed her, but here no, she's fuck you Gendo, she's over your bullshit, and it's so good. Like I just had like Ritsuko got a little moment, so I appreciated that.
I do think it's kind of interesting that like in this like second time around, Misato and Ritsuko and a lot of the adult characters are finally have their chance to be adults, I guess. But Shinji and all the other characters, like the younger characters, still need a little more time, especially because they aren't adults yet, like
no, it's a growing up story and they're still kids, so it kind of makes sense
they wouldn't arrive to their destination just yet, because they they're literally younger and stuff than Misato, and
and even one of the last things that happens in the movie is Yui is the one who takes it, like, so since Shinji doesn't sacrifice themselves, like she does it for, right. So like even to the end you have these parents who are like looking over their children, like so yeah.
Are you ready to get to the part?
I think it's time to fucking talk about the fucking. So I mean, like I kind of mentioned, like before, it's imagine episode 25 and 26, but they're a fight scene instead. Shinji versus Gendo is fucking awesome. Like at first, like they're fighting in like Tokyo 3 and they're like knocking buildings around. I'm like, oh, the CG is kind of weird. But then I realized they're fighting on a fucking tokusatsu set, and Anno's a giant fucking nerd, and I'm like, you fucking nerd! And it's just like, I mean, it's cool, but like, especially like what's really good comes after that, because holy shit, we get Gendo, holy fuck.
I really, I feel like it's cringe of me to do this because I do it a lot, but it's like, it's like kind of this thing that I really like from Naruto, where it's like Gendo's kind of Obito.
No, I'm not laughing. I didn't expect it for some reason, but go ahead.
Gendo is kind of Obito, like,
okay,
you know, he's very much kind of.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, like he literally was like Shinji, and is also kind of.
He gave up his humanity, and he's this older dark reflection who already went through some of the same things, but went in a darker way because he couldn't. But by being this counterpoint, he's able to, like, you know, the main character is able to grow beyond them and even help them in a way. And like, yeah,
and
I completely
like,
see it.
Super, like, something that
especially
I'm definitely coming to.
Even when you consider, because Gendo wanted Shinji to be like him.
Yeah,
like the whole reason he manipulated things with Rei is because Rei is Yui to Shinji, and like because he wanted Shinji to lose Rei and not get over it, just like he couldn't get over Yui's death. You're right. He's Obito.
I'm surprised you didn't, like, immediately after I said Obito. That was like, whoa, like.
Well, I never pieced it together, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, fuck, he's just Obito. But it's still really good. Obito's also really good, but...
Something that, like, you know, like, watching this movie especially has made me come to realize is, like, I really like penultimate, like, arcs where it's, like, kind of this fight against this, like... It's a fight against trying to escape reality and fighting against trying to go into this, like, you know, either, like, dreamlike world, or you know, trying to what did you send me? Yeah, like I really like that kind of trope, I guess. Like it's just like the coolest thing to me, I guess. I don't know why. Like I haven't really like super thought about why that I connect to that, but it's like it's something that I really, really like, especially like seeing like the actual like scenes with Gendo and like.
Well, like especially what got me, I think, is because when he talked about playing the piano, and I thought that was interesting because for Gendo, playing the piano was his loneliness, like him retreating and just being by himself and doing his own thing. But for Shinji, the piano was a way he could connect to someone else, right? Like, so, which I think, you know, because especially like going back to the Anno hates otaku thing is, you know, he does sort of use these sort of creative things as a sort of like, you could say like as a way to associate with like otaku, like, so here's, you know, he's using music as an escape, right? But it's not that like, you know, so with Shinji, it's something he can use to like gradually get better at and improve at and evolve himself, right? And change himself. But for Gendo, he used it to like shield himself away from, you know, people because like as a way to loneliness, right? So it's like, I guess, you know, which is because he's not rejecting otaku. It's a matter of how you handle these, you know, escapist elements, because like, you know, I don't think he can make Evangelion and then say like, you can never have escapism at all. Like he loves this shit, right? But it just don't be defined by it. Don't use it to isolate yourself, right?
I feel like there's just like no way you can look at 3.0 plus 1.0 and not think it makes Gendo so much better, because it's like these aspects were there in End of Eva and the TV series where like, you know,
he's always
Gendo
been completely like ruined by Yui's death.
Afraid of, you know, he was afraid of Shinji and afraid of and he felt like he didn't deserve his love,
or didn't want to be hurt by him, right? So
Hedgehog's dilemma. Scared.
He's just like Shinji. Yeah. He's just staying away from
like,
Shinji
this
because
movie drives it home so hard in such like an emotional way, and like I feel like some people might be like, oh, it's being a little too blatant with it, but it's like by showing it this way, it's definitely like a more emotionally resonant thing, and it's like, you know, Eva always decides to be. Like, Ava's already been blatant before with its, like, literal character analysis within last two
like,
episodes,
that's the thing,
or
like...
even End of Ava, really.
Well, like, I guess my stance on that...
It makes sense why they can still do this with Gendo and have it, like, be good.
Yeah, because I definitely think, like, say, comparing just, like, Evangelion Episode 1 to End of Ava versus Evangelion Episode 1 through End of Ava and the rebuilds is, like... by the nature of continuing as a sequel, like, we're getting more context, which in turn is going to inherently remove potential for, like, you know, even just like, oh, how did this episode end? What could happen in the next episode? All these things. Well, the next episode comes out, and one of those things happened, right? Like, that's just the nature of how stories are. So I kind of understand, especially considering the gap of time between the end of Eva and Rebuild 1, is just like, by being a sequel at all, it's inherently going to cut off potential readings of just Eva, because there are elements that are more vague or not as gone into, right? So it's more open to interpretation in some way. So I understand people, like, maybe not liking that aspect, especially if they had particular interpretations they were really, like, connected to, and maybe the rebuilds didn't go in the way that they felt. So I kind of understand, but you know, I think what we get is so good that for me it's not a problem at all, because you know, I've already heard some of these interpretations before. But, like, the movie but it just, like, when Gendo hugs Shinji as a kid and apologizes, and he's like, oh, Yui, this is where you were. And it's like, because, what the fuck? Why does this movie hurt me this way?
See, this section is what makes me want to, like, rewatch the movie already, because, like...
Apparently,
I love that Shinji...
rewatched this section 5 times. Like, the whole last half hour of the movie, he's rewatched it 5 times, apparently. Because... And I don't blame him!
This guy can't say that he's not a fan of Eva, if you do that. You literally cannot say that. I'm sorry.
The man who gave Eva a 1 out of 10 is now like, holy fuck, I had rewatched it 5 times! God. But I don't blame him, it's so good!
I really think like this adds so much more value to like Shinji, like the fact that he actually confronts Gendo. Like at no point in the TV series does that ever happen. And right. I mean, I guess you could say like, oh, when he threatened to destroy headquarters, but not really. No,
that's him. Like Gendo even calls it a childish temper.
Yeah, he's baby raging.
He's right. That's what it is. He's baby raging. Right, but this is him like grown-up Shinji rightfully calling out Gendo and recognizing that, like, you know, because Shinji's grown like, you know, there's even the part where like Misato sacrifices herself and Shinji accepts her death, right? Like he's something Gendo could never do because the one person he cared about died. And like the line there, he's like, you know, before he met Yui, loneliness was you know, a blessing, but after he met Yui, loneliness was anguish. Like, she introduced the pain of loneliness to him by leaving him, and it ruined him. He couldn't take it, and he fucking ended the world like 5 times because of it. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, like, I love that, you know, Shinji, he has this line where he says he wants to actually know how Gendo feels about him. And, like, you know, he's willing, like, even if Gendo does turn out to, like, actually hate him or, you know, actually doesn't want him around, he's still going to accept it. And, like, you know, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was, like, it was so good.
Yeah, I remember there was just some lines about, like, I think, who is it? Kaji or Kaoru? I feel like someone at one point said that, like, he had, or maybe it was Kaji's son. Like, he had to talk to his dad. I don't remember what character said it, but, like, and then Misato said, like, there's 2 things a son can do with their father: pat them on the back or shoot them. You know, like, everyone, you know, he has to talk with Gendo, and he, and I think the other part that got me really emotionally is after, like, Yui pushes Shinji away and takes the sacrifice for him, and, like, he sees, like, the image of them embracing, and I think there's a line about how, like, Gendo, like, he wasn't able to say goodbye. Like, he just lost her, and there was no closure, and it's so good! Okay.
Yeah. That entire section is just, like, so good. And, like, you know, even though I'm, like, you know, it sucks that some people don't like the rebuilds, and, you know, I'm still glad it seems like a lot of people enjoyed 3.0 plus 1.0, even though they don't like the other ones as much. Like, I'm glad it seems like most people this was so good that it even won over the people who didn't like the rebuild
haters, right? Like, not all of them, I'm sure, but, like, yeah. I guess as far as other final stuff is, like, we got Asuka and her whole deal. that I guess I need to think about more. Though feel like the one question I do have, I feel like I understood like the rebuilds overall for the most part, is I guess why Kensuke specifically? Like, because we see that he was the one who accepted Asuka as she was, but like I don't know. I'm not sure what other character could have been, but like why him? Like, because I understand why Mari specifically was Shinji, but Kensuke and Asuka, I don't quite grasp for sure yet. And I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what it could like. I don't know. I have to think about it. Like it was still good. Don't get me wrong. I think maybe
you'd have to watch the TV series and maybe you'd see something.
Yeah, see, because that's like something. I like. Do they like how many interactions do they really have in the TV series? Right.
I mean, like I just watched it and I still don't like necessarily have an answer, but like
right. But now if either of us rewatched it,
you would have this thing in mind while you're watching to think about.
Right, because now that we've seen it exactly, like, because and I guess like I actually was spoiled on Shinji and Mari, so I think I was kind of paying attention to their interactions a little bit more rewatching the rebuilds, because like, look, the fact that during the Gendo flashback, they specifically have Yui wearing, like, glasses and, like, a ponytail to kind of look like Mari, and Gendo even mentions, like, how Yui was the one who accepted him for who he was, like, and Mari, she accepted Shinji on the roof, she always kind of, like, was fine with and she was accepted who he became, where, like, when Kaoru and Shinji were having their closure, I think he mentioned like he something about like he likes how Shinji's changed, but he did like the older Shinji more, like, or something like that, right, where he kind of like liked Shinji most at that low point where Mari was able to like accept him at the time, but also the person he grew up as, or into rather, which it's good. And well, also just Mari just has a lot of like, she's kind of like the most well-rounded Eva character mentally from the start, which maybe I think people were bothered by because she comes across as kind of perfect, but like, I don't know, she's considering her role.
I definitely think she's, she's purposely like removed from having all these traumas and things that that the other characters have, and like I definitely think that she in a lot of ways is supposed to be like this very different kind of person that Shinji hasn't met like at all. Like even Kaoru, like at first he seemed more like someone who was removed from having his like problems and having these different hang-ups, but like at the end of the day he does have them and is kind of has some kind of flawed interactions with Shinji that it isn't exactly what he needs, whereas Mari is different in that regard.
Right. Well, like what I noticed in particular is when she's introduced in 2.0, she's singing a song about like finding happiness and going on a journey of like she's talking about like taking steps forward, maybe sometimes falling back, but ultimately like it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. So it's like there's gonna be failure, but it's like as long as you keep making that progress. And like when she's fighting in the climax in 3+1, the way she's counting is like she's not counting like 1, 2, 3. She's like, okay, 8 + 9, 8 + 9 + 10, 8 + 9. She's like the title 3+1, where like which is kind of this idea of like it's advanced. It calls more attention to the advancement, I would say, of like going forward, right? Where like so she from her first scene in the rebuilds, she is singing the point of the rebuilds. Like, just keep going forward, keep trying, and it'll work out somehow. And, like, it's Mari's good. I'm gonna say it. Like, is she amazing? No, and especially like when you consider like how little she gets in the rebuilds, all things considered, versus like the Eva characters, especially when we go back to the TV series where they get a lot of this good exploration. Like, yeah, but like she's still really good for the role she has, and I like her somehow. Maybe I also liked her tits. I'm not gonna say any more than that. But they're always bouncing. I appreciate it. Sorry. I've been avoiding the horny for a while, but I had to say that. Asuka's also naked a lot. I appreciated that too.
Anno definitely made like when he re-showed that end of Eva scene with Asuka and Shinji on the beach. Asuka definitely looks a lot more like sexualized there.
Her clothes are ripped in a really sexual way. Like it's just so horny.
But I guess about Mari, like, what do you like? Like, I'm not fully there with like how to think about her, but like, what do you think about like the idea of like she's kind of supposed to be, kind of like Anno revisiting this, like not that she's supposed to be Anno, but like kind of like representing the idea of him kind of revisiting the series and kind of like saving
I mean,
things.
I'm just not
like,
into the metatextual reading in the first place, because obviously there's a certain video that's really popular, and I don't
haven't
like
seen
this.
that one, but
Yeah, okay. It's not like, I don't think it's a bad reading necessarily. I just don't think it's a particularly interesting one, especially when like.
I definitely don't think it's like, the way I would like mostly talk about Ava or anything, but I do think it's
and
like
I mean,
a little
especially with
interesting
Mari,
to
as I've
consider
heard,
to like help
like
the point in some way. Like,
well, here's the thing: is like I've heard literally two other takes. Like apparently that video makes the take that she's like the ideal anime girl, and I've also heard the take that she's more of an ideal real girl. And like it's just so arbitrary that I'm just like I don't really care at this point unless like someone really pops off. Because the problem with that video is, aside from that, the person who made it is a piece of shit. It's just wrong because like you can see ways that it didn't like its reading doesn't line up with 3+1, and it's just a flawed reading. Sorry, but yeah. Anyway, enough about that. Mari works, I think, but
yeah, I mean, I really like the scene where they're together at the end of the movie.
God, look, when Shinji, he's old, he grow up, and I was bawling through the credits. Holy shit!
I love that, like the part where he's on the beach and it slowly like transforms into more and more of a drawing. Like I fucking love that visual
like
thing.
yeah,
in, like,
and it's
anything,
kind of like,
but like Ava does it a lot.
No, yeah, and it's especially reminiscent of the episode 24 or 25 and 26, right, where it was getting really wild, and especially the next episode previews were only in those kind of like storyboards of I forget the exact, not storyboards, I forget the exact term for, when it was at its most simple, where it's like barely animated at all, the one I'm talking about, but I forget what they're called. No, yeah, it's yeah, no, when I when I saw it on your 4x4 earlier, I was like, like,
I really wanted to use the fully drawing version, but I couldn't really justify it on the thing. But yeah, it's so good. Like I love, especially with like how, the whole like Ava, like as you watch it, definitely like acknowledges in a sense, like it definitely. Like, how like End of Ava like shows real people and it shows like the theater audience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah,
like,
you're right.
it definitely like
it's
acknowledges
medium, right?
that it's like fiction and like, but it's
or
still
the
like,
way even in I think it's 26 where you see like an alternate universe that's just a high school slice of life, right? Like here it is being anime, right? Like yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so like it likes to pull back in this sort of way towards like to like really drive home its like a message in a certain kind of way, which I think is really cool. I really like to see that every time.
No, yeah, it's God, I think that about covers it though. And I'm trying to think of what more I have to say, but it's like it's so fucking good. Oh, I guess one thing about Mari that I not sure about yet is because she had her dialogue with Fuyutsuki, and apparently her real name is Mary Iscariot or something like that, and it's like I guess she was mentored by him before, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take from that. But yeah, like yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot there with her that could change on like rewatches.
But no, yeah, Ava, it's interesting and good, and I think I could get more out of it on a rewatch, especially now with like 3+1 in mind, because it's so fucking good. So yeah, I guess final thoughts. I see it. I'm so used to doing like the reverse orders on the weekly that it's now become the actual order, and I'm like, oh yeah, but for the backlogs, I go first. So yeah, I guess in order I would rate Ava 1 and 2. I'd give them a 7 out of 10. They're good. I enjoy them. but I think especially when you compare the TV series, they just don't do as much, even if like it makes sense for what they are doing in the context of the rebuilds, and they're building off that context, so it works. It's just like I like them, but just not as much. Where Eva 3.0 is like I did think it was more interesting, and it was also which makes sense as it was retreading less ground and just overall like almost pretty much all original, even if it's still like revisiting like the Kaoru stuff, but in its own rebuild way. But I gave that one an 8. And 3+1, it's at a 9, but it's like a very strong 9. It's just a matter of like how well I've also I think I'm not sure if I want to give things a 10 after I like first view them, just in case, like what if my feelings wane after a little while. But like right now it's one of my favorite things I've experienced all the year. It's really fucking good, phenomenal movie. So it's like very close to being a 10, but just not quite. So yeah, go ahead, Nun.
Ava 1 is like a 5.
I thought you give it a 6.
It's okay, but it didn't get into like more of the original cool things. And I just rewatched the TV series, so just seeing that again wasn't the best, I guess, especially because I watched it literally immediately after finishing the TV series and End of Ava. I gave Ava 2.0 and 8. I really liked it. I thought I thought the final fight scene was super cool and super like I was super into it. 3.0 I give it a 7. I do think it has more interesting things going on than the first two movies. But I guess the start of it, it wasn't boring, and it was still good, but it wasn't like super great, I guess. But it's still a good movie. And Shinji and Kaoru in it are really good. I gave 3.0 plus 1.0 a 9. And it's definitely the peak of Ava for me. The peak before was the final 2 episodes of the TV series. But
for me, my prior peak was End of Ava, but now it's 3+1.
Yeah, it's just built different. Just put Obito in it and make it good.
That's all I even needed is Obito, and now it's great. No, no, it's funny. I have a friend who really likes Naruto, but really hates Ava, and now I can say, hey, look, Ava's good now. It added Obito.
That's funny. I would wonder what he would think.
He's kind of cringe about it, or it was. I don't know if he'd change if he watched. Anyway, go ahead.
I forgot to bring this up earlier when we were talking about it. But it was like kind of funny to see like 3.0 plus 1.0 saying like hope and despair. Like
those words are so ruined by Danganronpa. And it's just like Danganronpa has broken us. I guess I understand.
I thought it was cool, even though it's like, yeah, it always makes me think of Danganronpa every time.
Right, the sphere of hope and the sphere of despair. It's like, oh, the Monokuma sphere and the no, I can't. Yeah, great movie. Good movie series with a real. It's so good. All right. We thank you for listening. I think that about covers it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for listening to another backlog, and see you another time.